So in 2005, when the Hurricane Katrina came on shore in New Orleans, as you know, thousands of people died or were injured, and there were a lot of people who were displaced, left with nothing. And when a charitable organization connected those people with individuals in other parts of the country that were willing to help, we brought someone, a man from Louisiana, and to protect the innocent, I will just say his name was Scott. Came to our home in Montana, and we got him back on his feet, and eventually he left and came back down here. Now, but that's not what I came to talk about, but I did want to say that one of the things I learned, everything I learned about Louisiana, I learned from Scott. But one of the great things was what a storytelling culture it is. Like, you know, the most amazing thing was not that he was in the Superdome during Katrina, but that story wasn't even the biggest story he had. It was like maybe number 4 of his life down in growing up in the bayou down south of here. Was amazing, if it was all true, you know? So anyway, what we're here to talk about is storytelling with maps. And so I'm just going to go ahead and, that's almost like the end of the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to jump us over to this viz in Tableau. So it's a very simple map viz. All these orange dots you see are small communities south of us. There's us up in New Orleans. These are communities that are identified by an article I read in the New York Times as threatened communities. You know, well, there's nothing in this map that tells you that story. But the next story point, I know it's hard to read. I will just tell you what it says is expected 100-year flood 50 years from now with no action. So now a 100-year flood is actually a real statistical thing. People who plan for this stuff, it has a 1% chance of occurring in any given year. So if you think about the whole globe, any statisticians here, anybody around? Anyway, here's your question. If there's 20,000 coastal communities in the world, and they all have a 1% chance in any given year of having a 100-year flood, when is the next 100-year flood going to happen? Give it a guess. I know it's hard with the microphone. Today? Okay, yeah. So the point is that these things are going to happen. They're happening all the time, and we need to prepare for them. So, but the first thing you got to do is motivate people, and that's the storytelling part. So I'm going to just switch to the next story point and show what the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority of Louisiana thinks will happen to these communities in the 100-year flood 50 years from now. Want to see that again? This is today, and we can kind of zoom out here. There's the political boundary of Louisiana. And that's what it is expected to be during this flood. Now, I will say right now, I'm not going to talk much more about this flood event. This is also kind of a teaser. Tomorrow and the following day, by the way, my name is Jim Wolseth. I'm a senior software developer on the Maps team, but Ashwin Kumar and I are going to give a full breakout session talking about all this stuff. We're going to go into spatial analysis for flood planning and all kinds of cool stuff. So that is called Bayou Tapestry, tomorrow and the next day. Here today, I'm just going to talk about how I made this background map. So this very important background map that provides this context for this viz and tells the story was made in Mapbox. So what is Mapbox? Mapbox is a company. They're here, they have a booth, and they have a website with a tool that allows you to do your own authoring of maps, right? So it's very cool. And with that, we will proceed to make this map before your very eyes. So this is like the cooking show part of the talk, right? Now we're going into making things. So, okay, here we go. First, I'll just I'll point out this is my target viz. I've created the cities and stuff, but this background map is not what I want, right? So let's go make the map that I want. So this is Mapbox, and again, I'm just pointing out that nothing too magical here. Mapbox.com. Everything that I'm going to do here, you can do. And this is, again, the cooking show. I want you to come out of here like, man, that looked good. That was delicious looking maps, and I want to make that myself, right? So, so when you're in Mapbox, you make your free account, and any of these blue buttons are usually a good idea to click on, especially one that says Start Building, because that's what we want to do. We're going to make a new map. So up here, Studio, and that's in the Studio with Mapbox, the title of my talk, right? So we're going to go into Studio. Again, it says start with basic, but what that really means is start making a new map and use as a template the basic map. So I'm going to jump in there. And now we're really in the map authoring tool right here. Now the very first thing I'm going to do, because I'm interested in New Orleans, not Paris, which is the default location that it goes to, I'm going to use their little search device here and change my view to New Orleans just so I can see what's happening around here. So there we are. Now, what I want to emphasize in my map is really a world of water and land. And a lot of times when you're actually creating a background map for a visualization with data, it's really more of a subtractive process, which is why you see default background maps for Tableau be basically very minimal, right? So in fact, what I'm going to do, this is going to be like making avocado toast or something. That's how easy this is. I'm going to go over here. What we have here on the left are all the layers that make up this default map. They are rendered in order one on top of one another. But what I want to do is get rid of everything that isn't water. So what I did there was select all the layers that weren't water. And now I'm going to go up here, and there's a little symbol here, hide 20 layers. So, I'll do that. Now, we come out, and you'll notice on the map that all the streets are gone, the labels, everything. I'll show you that again because I want to get rid of land use and national parks. So, gone. Okay. Now that is what I would actually call this like a prehistoric map. There's no sign of humans here, except if you look at these pipelines that are coming through. But now, this in itself is already a custom map. I could take this, I could take the few clicks and steps to use this as my background map. But remember I had that dotted line that was the boundary of Louisiana. Now, Mapbox has, state boundaries and things in it, but they don't go out into the ocean like I need. So I had to go I just went and searched on a government site and found the full boundary for Louisiana. And I'm going to bring that in and use it as a custom layer in Mapbox. So I'm just going to show you how easy it is to bring in a layer like that. First, I'm going to kind of save my work here. I'm going to call this map Prehistoric 1. Whoops. Possible spelling error there. All right. Now I'm just going to leave the map editor for a moment, still in Mapbox. And I'm going to go to another area here. Notice my map, Prehistoric, is now one of my styles. You can have 10 styles in your free account, so, no problem there when you start out. So, tile sets. So, I'm going to explain a little bit about tiles now. I'm going to, maps, your background map, and you've probably observed this, come in squares, right? These are what, in the language of map making, we call tiles. So tile set is just a bunch of those square tiles. And what we need to do is take our raw spatial data and convert it into a tile set. Well, Mapbox has made this really easy. again, the blue pill allows me to choose a spatial file. In this case, I'm picking this GeoJSON file. So this is a very typical spatial format. It happens to be one that Mapbox really likes. I've chosen to open it and confirm. So this is like I've put the spatial file in the toaster and pushed it down. And if you notice on the lower right, there's a process happening. The file's getting uploaded to Mapbox, and then Mapbox is taking it and breaking it into those tiles that we can use in our map. And so also like in the cooking show, while that baking is happening, I had already prepared one in advance so I can jump over to it. In fact, in my tile sets down here, you can see there's in my code, Louisiana as line, etc. So I've got a tile set with Louisiana boundary in it. I'm going to jump back into, hang on here. Come back. There we go. Okay, so I'm back at that map that I had made, prehistoric one, and I'm going to add that boundary as a layer as soon as I get my map to reverse here. There we go. Little bit of slow network. Okay. So you can see right here, can't really see too clearly, let me zoom that in, but add layer. This is where you go to create a new layer in your map. So to create a layer, you need a tile set. You need to choose from it. And you'll see like there's a lot of tile sets to choose from. That's because the default Mapbox map has many, many, many tile sets available to you that they have already prepared and you can use. In this case, I know that I want my Louisiana as line, so I'm just putting a little search key in here. Meanwhile, on the right, the map you're seeing is really like a skeletal view of all the possible data that's available to make layers. So I'm picking my line, and there it is. You can see appearing over on the right. This is the Louisiana coastline. And as soon as, immediately, I'm invited up here, choose style to theme your new layer. So I'm going to click on style. And now I'm really in like the authoring part of making this map. Actually, the default color is black. I'm pretty happy with that. But I want to make the line wider. So when I clicked on width, I can just go up here and put in, let's say I want 2 pixels, right? And that would be good. Oh, but I think as you can already see what's coming in on the right is this big black snake-looking thing. Yeah, so what I've done is I've made an authoring error here. And one thing about this interface, it takes a little getting used to. This is kind of like what you see is what you get interface. As soon as you make a change, there's no save button. It's like it just happens, right? And it's a little alarming at first because, you know, maybe I didn't want to do that. But there's a great way to fix anything that happens. Over here is something called history. And when I click on history, I can go back to any point in the creation. Everything I've done and all the steps are there. You can go back in time to any place. So I'm just going to go back one step and go back before I made my mistake and fix that. Okay. Now, so, whoop. Okay, what I really wanted was 2 pixels wide. And because I just can't help like fiddling around, I mean, this would be fine, but I really think a dashed look would be nice. So I've clicked add dash array. I'm going to say, let's have 8 pixels, a space, and then 2 pixels. And again, you notice as I type, everything just updates immediately in the map. So, okay, now this is basically, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go, now this is the fun part. I'm going to go take this map that I made and use it in Tableau. I've got that workbook waiting for me, and I'm going to use it as the background. So, right here is publish the blue button again. And this is kind of nice. You can see what's changed. It's like, on the right is my map. On the left was the map I was starting with. Now publish. So now we have a series of clicks basically to get this map into the background in Tableau. And you can just kind of, after you see me do this a couple times, it'll be pretty intuitive. But we want to, this is the only kind of subtle part right here. I don't want to share the map, I want to use it. So I'm going to use the map. And over here, third party, remember we're in Mapbox, and so from Mapbox's perspective, Tableau is a third party, right? So this is third party. And there we are. We have a great partnership with Mapbox, and so they've created this documentation, this place to choose, and when you go in, there's actually an explanation how to do the integration. But what's involved is basically this. Right here, what I did is I copied this string, this integration URL. So it's a little bit like you can't see it happening, but that copy put that string onto my clipboard. And you have to imagine that thing is in your clipboard until you get rid of it. So, so that means I'm ready. I've copied my integration URL, and now I can go back to Tableau. So we switched, we're back in Tableau in my workbook. Here's the sheet that I want to use my new map. So I'm going up here to the map menu, easy to remember. Background maps, that's what we're doing. We're changing the background map. From our point of view, Mapbox is a map service. So we go into Map Services, and down here, we have the same blue buttons they have. I don't know if that's an accident or not. I want to add a Mapbox map. Now, I have to name it again, which is slightly irritating, but I'm going to call it Prehistoric 1 in Tableau as well. And this is the name that really matters because this is what you will pick from your menu. Okay, here's this magic thing. Remember, I have that string up on my clipboard, so I'm going to go paste, and nothing happens because I haven't hit enter yet. And when I do that, our code in Tableau parses out that string and fills in all the necessary things, including the token which identifies this map as being yours in Mapbox. So there you go. I made a map. There's never been one like it. And in a few minutes, I was able to bring it in to Tableau and use it. So that's the that's the avocado toast, easy. I can do that, and I absolutely, totally encourage everyone to just make a free account. Of course, it's fun. It's great. It's cool to make your own map, but it does more than that. Being able to put spatial data in the background map is a way of kind of creating It's layers, right? In a way, you've got data, a lot of data, spatial data you don't need to have as a mark in your foreground that you can click on and things like that. You should always think about making a map viz. Do I need this in the foreground, or I just need it for context? Well, this, kind of like the flood data that I showed you earlier, that's definitely for context. I don't want people clicking on these polygons and excluding them and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, lots of reasons to use this easy to do thing. So the flood data. Yeah, I don't have that effect here yet, right? So this is interesting that I see a lot of water. But let's go ahead and do the thing that I showed you at the beginning, which is to show that inundated world. So that data I mentioned, if you're a really astute listener, the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority of Louisiana. So this is a great organization in terms of sharing their data. They've calculated, what's going to happen in all these floods in the future, right? And they've made that data available as a shapefile. And I brought that data in to Mapbox as well. So I'm going to leave Tableau here and go back to Mapbox, back to my prehistoric map. And I'm going to add a layer that contains the flood data. I happen to know it's from a data set called Master Plan 2017. So when I search for that, it appears. Flood depths. And again, as before, I'm able to style that data right away. It hasn't quite come into light here. There we go. So this is, kind of the raw experience of looking at data before it's styled. I mean, this looks terrible, right? But all I have to do to make this data work for me, to create the effect I want, remember the effect I want is the ocean coming onto land. Well, I need this data to be the color of the ocean. And all I have to do in color is go down here, and there's a choice, apply existing value. And I just look for what the color of water is. It's the existing color of water in this map. So when I choose that, ba-boom, there you go. Now my flood data is doing what I want. It's creating the effect that I want, right? But it's a little bit of not true. And of course, for one reason, I've made it the same color everywhere. So even where the water is just like six inches deep, it looks like the ocean is there. So the next step was to create that graduated look. I want the color to fade out where the water is shallow. And so to do that, I'm going to style the opacity. They say opacity is, like transparency. So I'm going to make the transparency very high where the water is shallow. And the way we do that is using something called, now, style across data range. All of the polygons in this data set have associated with them water depth. So that's the data in this case. I know we use the term data a lot. In this case, it's flood depth. So style across data range. All these properties of the polygons are different scenarios in the flood. And I happen to know, because I've been reading about it for weeks, that this code represents what I mentioned very early on, the 100-year flood 50 years from now. So I'm going to choose that. I'm going to style my map, the opacity, using the water depth. So initially what I have is just here's my ramp. It's not really a ramp. It'll be more apparent if I change it. But what I want is when the water is at 0, I want my transparency to be 100%. You can see right away on the map that we see now the shallow areas. But this is almost like gone too far, because now in my ramp, I'm going to point this out, that it ranges in a nice linear fashion from 0, no water, to like when it's 44 feet deep, it turns blue. I really feel like it's fair to say if you're in like 8 feet of water, that you're underwater, right? So I'm going to add another stop here. It says add another stop. And I'm going to say that when the value of this data, this flood depth data, reaches 8, then the opacity is going to go to 1. So finally, what I've got is this ramp, and imagine as the water gets deeper, the opacity increases. Okay, that is the effect that I wanted. So I'm going to go and again use this in my map. I'm ready to publish. Now here's the pro tip thing right now. It's like, I don't know what that is in the cooking show, like, use medium heat or something. But one of the options here, it's not the default option, is publish as new. If I just publish, that will update the map that I already created. And it's like, well, that sounds good. The problem is when you're in a map editing mode and going back and forth between Tableau and Mapbox, we have tiles we say they get cached, which is a way of like saving a file because you think you already downloaded it. But it creates problems when you're changing your map and trying to refresh. So trust me, I have found it's better to publish as new. There's a few more keystrokes, but things behave more as you would expect. So it's kind of a little bit odd. When I said publish as new, it still says prehistoric 1. But if I go back to look at all my map styles that I have created, there is one called copy. I'm just going to go ahead and use this new map, this publish as new. Share and use is another way to get to this menu. Use, third party, Tableau, copy the URL. Everything like we did before. Now I'm going to leave Mapbox and go back to my workbook. And maps, background maps, map services, add, Mapbox maps. I'm going to call this, let's give it a flood name. Flood at 50 years. You can make it any name you want. And there you go. Presentation mode, another pro tip. I love presentation mode because I like maps, and I like more map. Why do I want all this stuff around my map? It's like, let's make it as big as possible. So yeah, so this is a map we set out to make. How long ago? How long did that take? Not too bad, 5:13. I think we're out of time. And importantly, I'd love to talk to you all, anybody who's interested in doing this or wants to just like knock around in Mapbox. Mapbox is here. What else? Go to the analytics kiosk. I'm generally hanging out there and talking about maps with people. And tomorrow and the next day, there's a bigger, badder version of this whole talk that goes into some more deeper, like spatial analytics stuff to figure out where the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority of Louisiana should expend their energy. So I think it's really cool. So check it out if you would. Thanks a lot. Guess that's it. Thank you. Hey.
I've heard about Mapbox GLJS.
Yeah.
If I want to get into that, not knowing anything, where should I go first? Sessions or
well,
should I just jump in? Or?
I don't. So you're talking about developer level thing.
Because I see some of these maps people are creating, like the one about the population in Manhattan. Have you seen that one?
Was that the 3D?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, I would definitely talk to the Mapbox people and go to They are giving their own talk. It's called Back to the Future of Mapping or something like that. So and they're going to do stuff like that, like even more wild stuff like that. And so
that's a good starting point.
Yeah, and they have their sort of like, well, they're sort of like tutorial stuff for doing this is really good, but they also have they're quite good about documentation and like here's where to start, small project, things like that, or. Yeah, you can track down. There's developers here from my team that you could talk. You could talk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Tableau Maps team. Brett Weber.
Okay.
Is really he might he's not. We have web guys that really do that kind of stuff all the time. But he's just like got a really good broad knowledge of the technology and the maps and stuff like that. So,
right, cool.
But yeah, you should try it out.
All right,
cheers.
thanks,
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
How you doing, Eric?
Hey, Eric. Cheers. Hey.
Hey, thank you so much for this. Quick question about this. So, can you change the order of this map so you can actually see that black line that you put in?
Actually.
One place the other kind of deal.
I just was,
okay.
yeah, that,
You can't say it.
I forgot, this is one little problem with my demo is that when we zoom into into there, you can't see it. So, but yes, you can change the order. And that's one thing right before I did this and I was practicing, I realized I should show how the order matters,
Right.
and if you're in Mapbox, I'll just show you this, it's kind of interesting. If we go into the editor here, watch me if I drag this, this line, if I drag it down below the water, it's gone. Because it's rendered under the water, right? And so, you know, and like, oops, but yeah, this is where you do the history thing and go like back to start. So, yeah.
Excellent. And so I think this is exactly kind of what I needed.
Okay.
And I have not used Mapbox before. I'm kind of new to the
Yeah, sure.
I was trying to map some EPA data that they have for marginalized communities according to census.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we have a bunch of agencies that are food pantries.
Yeah.
So I had the polygons, and I was trying to just place these agencies
on top. Yeah.
And I couldn't. I was breaking my head trying to do it.
And you can. It's just that you don't. If you don't want to, you know, it's like if you really just want it in the background, then just do this. Yeah, it's. You should try it.
Right.
And yeah.
And as far as connecting from my Tableau to Mapbox, is that like a pretty? Is it just copying?
What you saw me do? That is it. That's it.
Okay.
And you can download this PowerPoint, and there's more detail in there about how I did everything. Perfect. All the PowerPoints are downloadable after a conference, or even like I don't know. So there's a lot of stuff in my PowerPoint that just like step. The whole like cookbook. Yeah. So yeah.
Where are you based out of?
Seattle.
Would you have somebody that maybe local in the Bay Area that you would recommend to connect with? Or
you know, we have a Palo Alto office, but all the Maps team is in Seattle. I would just reach out to me.
Okay. How do I get your PowerPoint?
After the conference, they send out this email or something, and it's like where you can get all the content. But also just yeah. Let's see. I could go back to. Go back here. I can. Let's see. Does this clicker work?
Whenever you're ready, you can just leave your.
Okay. Is this? I was going to go. This is all the stuff that's in my PowerPoint that you'll get when you download this stuff. But what I was trying to get to is, there's my my contact information is up there. There's my email and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, thanks for the questions. Hey Claudio, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
question for you.
Yeah.
Mapbox, Tableau's not going to be the only tool that's going to be able to leverage it.
Oh yeah, Mapbox is like they're tearing up, you know, the world like me talking with all kinds.
Bringing in Mapbox.
Well, you know, I think everybody's kind of like integrating with everybody, you know, which is great. Yeah, so I actually don't know that specific question. I don't know, but I know that Mapbox is like they're going out and making arrangements with everybody that want that. You know, they're just yeah. Do that and anytime. Yeah, cheers. Yeah. Hey Sal. Hey, yeah.
Great presentation. One of the things we're trying to do is show impact areas for hurricanes for all the assets. We're in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
We want to show here's our potential level 1, level 2.
Right. Yeah.
Do you guys already have some pre-built stuff coming in from the national, I think it's called NOH, National Hurricane?
We do not. The only data that you get when you install Tableau is the geocoding data. So like, you know, the locations of cities and counties and all that kind of stuff. So any other data, you kind of have to go source it. But yeah, I mean, I thought about when I was doing this, what other applications, people that would be interested in this, and obviously insurance and there's after the fact data like storm tracks and all that stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. I'll find you in the booth.
Yeah, find me. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Hey, Shu Jen, is that right? Yeah. Thanks for coming to the talk. Yeah. Yeah.
I was curious. I heard you guys support shapefile.
Yes. Yeah. So that data that I'm using in the background, the flood data, you can just open it in Tableau, and all those 20,000 polygons or whatever will be right in Tableau, and you can color. You can like put properties on them, and it's actually it actually looks really cool. It's maybe even looks cooler than this, but it's like but yeah. So any shapefile, KML, GeoJSON. You can, and also we can connect to SQL Server database. So these are, and then Esri geodatabase we can open as well. I think that's all. But yeah, so that's all our different native spatial types we can bring in. And yeah, but just open shapefile, bam, opens right up. Yeah. So.
The data connections straight out of a browser.
Or is
So,
it, were you talking about a desktop?
yeah, this is everything I did here was in desktop. If I publish, this will all work. The server, if I publish up to server will make the connection to Mapbox, and well, actually, it keeps working on server. I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, and the authoring, yeah, again in this case, the map authoring was outside of Tableau, but you just go out, author, come back. Zip, yeah, so yeah.
What is map commonly used? Are they mostly used in the background, or how about some? If I want to do.
Yeah, so every map in Tableau basically has this. The fundamental architecture is this static background map, and this is actually in my PowerPoint. I didn't use it, but it's static background map, and then you've got these marks, which are some kind of spatial data, which you can select, filter, all those things. But the background map is always just there. It never changes unless you can apply like a washout or something. So background map, static image, and then your marks, which can also be spatial data, are on top. And that's the basic architecture of every map viz in Tableau is like that. But yeah, and this is the choice because of Mapbox. You have the choice. It's like, oh, do I want this? Do I want to be able to select this data? Do I need to, or is it just context? In which case, well, why have it? Why bring it in and complicate your queries and all these things if you don't need to do that, right? So then you can make a background map that has that data in it. So makes sense. Yeah. 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 If you have more questions, like I said, it's usually one or two maps people over at the visual analytics kiosk. Brett Weber also on the maps team. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Well.
Nice presentation, thanks.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was